All right, Chris, what are your top 3 tips you've got for anybody coming to fish the Sealy Big Bass event this week?
Well, Clark, probably of course, the swim jig bite's going on really good right now because we have shad spawn. Plus, you're going to be coming up on the perch spawn. Two of my favorite swim jigs: white shad sandtone swim jig, Toledo perch swim jig. The trailers I'd put on it, I'd go something a little bit bulky. The new Zoom Speed Crawl, I really like it. It's a little bit bigger than the original, and of course, you can't go wrong with the Skinny Dipper. That's always a great trailer at Rayburn. Um, and then, of course, you've got to put in the wacky worm and the Cinco, in my opinion. There'll be a lot of fish caught on it. You can fish the bushes with it, the hay grass. You can fish the inside edge of the grass. Great colors, green pumpkin, 925's everybody's favorite. I do like just on a straight wacky worm. I like June bug this time of year, on a wacky rig. And then for my one that's kind of a little bit off, maybe off the beaten path, there's still some pretty good hydrilla out there. I would maybe try to roll a big 3/4 ounce sandtone spinnerbait out on the edges of the grass, the points leading into the drains where the fish are coming out of, or it's probably, it may not be too hard to find a fish or two out hunched over a big brush pile. So basically that would be my three tips: the big spinnerbait, sandtone swim jig, and a wacky worm or Cinco.
What do you think the big fish is going to be this week?
I would say I would definitely say we'll see a 10. I mean, there's still some fish that haven't spawned. It wouldn't surprise me to see a 10 plus.
Well, more importantly, what sort of weight is it going to take every hour to get a check?
It's really surprising because even on the tough years, if you look at the list, it normally takes a pretty good fish. You're probably looking at I'd say a 3.5 to 4 pounder.
Anything else?
I think that's it. Just be safe and everybody have a good time. It's going to be a good weekend for it.
All right. If somebody's interested in going on a guide trip with Chris McCall, how can they reach you?
You can get me at chrismccallfishing.com or 409-594-2057.
I'm here now in Tackle Addict with Aaron Kochel, who works the counter most days up here and sees what everybody's buying. He's up fishes the lake pretty frequently. He kind of knows what the deal is right now, and he's going to tell us his top 3 secrets to success for this Sealy Big Bass Splash.
All right, for my first bait, I would go with a stick bait. You can't go wrong with that this time of year. You can fish it weightless, fish it with Texas rig with a weight, or you can fish it wacky rig. This is probably the most bought thing in the shop right now. There are so many people that's just buying a stick bait to go out there and fish and throw around bushes, grass, just whatever they come across. Another thing is a frog. The frog bite's starting to heat up. There's a few people starting to catch them on a frog. We got some people buying some frogs. There's still a lot of fish up shallow. Still got fish spawning. You got some post spawners. They're just kind of hanging out around the cover. Wanting to recover from the spawn, so that frog around the grass and bushes, that's going to play real key. And a swim bait. You can throw that swim bait around the grass as well, around the bushes. Pretty much the same thing, same places that you're going to throw that frog, throw that stick bait around. I haven't been seeing too many people buy a swim bait, but this is definitely something that I would be throwing for sure. I think the 3 baits, I think they're going to get bit a lot. I think there's going to be a lot of money fish caught on.
All right, what do you think big bass for this tournament is going to be?
Big bass, I'm going to go with probably 11 1/4. There's been a ton of big bass caught here lately, but I'm gonna go with 11 1/4.
If you only had one bait to throw the entire tournament and only one rod, what bait would it be and what brand?
I think I would throw this little swim bait all day. I can cover a lot of water with it. I can fish it around any kind of cover, and I think I could catch plenty of money fish on this little swim bait.
All right, what do you think it's going to take to get paid every hour?
I think you might can get away with some mid 3s in some hours, but I think you're gonna have to more than likely have at least a 4 to get paid.
Hello, this is Branum. We have the Sealy Big Bass Splash this week on Sam Rayburn Lake. I'm a fishing guide here full time, and I've been asked for my predictions or help, whatever, with the fishing here right now and how it's fishing. The past few weeks we've seen a full spawn on the lake, so that's something to remember for all you guys that think about such things. It's very important, I think, along with, well, let me back up a second. The biggest things to be thinking about are the fact that we've just finished a full spawn on the lake. Of course, there's still some fish spawning. There's fish spawning through April here. You can find one here and there. This tournament has been won with a fish off of a bed before. It was during this same time of week or month, and it was right down here south, so I know about that, and a lot of you may. It's been won on a frog, it's been won in deep water, it's been won on a big worm more times than anything, I believe. But right now we've got an emerging shad spawn on the lake, and it's just now starting, so I think that's going to be a big factor in the tournament. I would normally say that this was going to be a low weight tournament and that smaller fish were going to do well, and there well may be some smaller fish than normal make checks, but you're going to see a lot more big fish than most people expect, in my opinion. The post-spawn fish are different in all parts of the lake. There's parts of our lake that's generally shallow for square miles. There's parts of our lake that's generally deep for square miles. And the fish that are through with the spawn, where they do the post-spawn, kind of depends on what part of the lake they're spawning in. So deep to some fish is 10 feet, deep to some fish is 30 feet. It depends on where they live. What I've found in a lot of the places that I'm fishing, that the post-spawn fish are in shallow water. They're in deep water compared to where they spawn, but they're still in 5 to 12 feet of water. So there's no other water any deeper, really near where they are. So those are the kind of fish that I personally would be looking at for money fish in this tournament. They may or may not be winning fish, but there's a tremendous amount of fish that are very predictable in post-spawn right now. The primary baits I'm using is a swim jig with some kind of flapping trailer. White is my favorite color. Dirty or clear water. It's a perfect bait for a shad spawn. I fish it on braided line. I throw it in extremely heavy cover. What most people call hay on this lake is a really good place to look for shad spawn. And large fish can and do get caught up in the spawn of shad. So watch for that to be a big factor in this tournament. If you don't know what that is, you'll find out about the shad spawn this week. Another bait that has a lot of potential right now in this tournament, and the tournament has been won on a frog in the past. Some people may think that's unusual, but those that fish a frog a lot know that it's a very, very, very large fish bait. Fished on braided line, heavy cover. Our lake level is around 164 right this very moment. That's a little bit below full pool, but it's been so long since we've been at that level that there's a lot of flooded cover, a lot of flooded bushes, a lot of flooded what people call hay grass. It's really torpedo grass. We've got water primrose, both hydrilla and coontail grass are in the lake, and you find this heavy bank mix with wood, and you're going to find large bass. And a lot of them are posting in shallower water than you might think. We're catching a lot of post-spawn fish up to 5, 6, 7 pounds in 3 foot or less. It's just, they're comfortable there. The water's not yet to 80 degrees. They're not leaving the bank. There's plenty of food. And there's no reason for a large fish to go very far until they've had a few meals and get stronger from the stress of the spawn. And a lot of times that'll be in an old broke down tree at the edge of a flat. And they just hang out in the shade and feed on easy prey for a little while and get that energy level back up before they make it to more offshore areas. Okay, and they are generally looking for an easy meal, very predictable, easy food, where they know if they make the effort to feed, they're going to be successful. They have very low energy. They live on conservation of energy, and a frog is a perfect, predictable, easy meal to grab. So a frog can be a large fish bait. Down those same lines, we have flooded buckbrush, flooded logs, flooded broke down trees, mats of hay grass, hydrilla that's died during the freeze that's blown in, and you can find some real heavy bank mix in 3 to 5 feet of water. You have to look pretty hard for that stuff, but when you find an area that has a little water and has this super heavy bank mix, it'll look a lot like a small island. Some really big fish will use that. I prefer a large weight, anywhere from 3/4 ounce to 1.25 ounces, depending on the thickness of the cover, and a small compact flipping bait such as a Beaver 420, Sweet Beaver. I use a variety of hooks. This one's a grip pin 3/0. It doesn't really take a really big hook. It takes a very strong hook to get that fish in, but I'd rather have a fish on nothing else than 15 feet of braided line and a great big single hook. So look for that to produce some large fish in this tournament, possibly even a wind fish in brush. Generally close to the bank on in this tournament. There's one bait I don't have rigged here, and that is a large worm, Zoom old monster. I mean, take your pick. 1/2 ounce weight, 20 or 25 pound fluorocarbon, fished offshore in crappie brush. That is a big category that's won this tournament in the past. I mean, Caney Flats, the ridges in the Black Forest, up north around the 147 bridge, the canyons, Deer Stand, all those areas have big drops off of the primary spawning areas there. Look for post-spawn fish a little bit deeper there. That worm is hard to beat in brush or on natural cover. One thing I would tell you about that is I would fish a little bit lighter weight than I normally would if I was fishing a large worm, and I would fish near bank cover, near bank brush piles, not open water brush piles as much right now. They can be caught anywhere, but that's just the way I would be thinking. It's a few tail kicks out for a large bass to get in the top of one of these piles, and there'll be some caught like that as well. Near bank, crappie brush, bass brush, and I would use a lighter weight than normal to leave that bait in front of the fish longer. Kind of fishing the tops of these piles. They're not quite acclimated to really deep water yet, but they like to sit on top of these piles, and that's a fantastic way to catch them.
Brian, what do you think big bass is going to be for this tournament?
Oh man, that's a big deal. I know of 2 9-pounders caught in the past week in 13 feet or less. I had a customer with an 8-pound 13-ounce fish last Tuesday. I'm guessing it'll be close to 11 pounds, if not 11 pounds. That's just what I think. An 8-pound fish right now, if it's post-spawn, at one time weighed 10 pounds this year. So, you know, we have lots of 10-pound fish in the lake, so 8-pound fish that are post-spawn are going to be caught. I think someone may catch a late spawner in the 11-pound range. That's my prediction.
What do you think the minimum weight's going to be to get a check in an hourly check?
I believe towards the first of each tournament day, there's going to be fish less than 3 pounds that get a check. I really do. Maybe 290 and 310, that range of fish is probably going to get a few checks. It's fairly tough if you don't find a good pattern, and then you add how many people are on the lake and the pressure and all the things that go along with a really large tournament like this.
Any last tips that you have for people about fishing this event? Maybe not even fishing related.
You know, I guess the biggest tip I have, besides lures and study and looking for the shad spawn and things like that, is to fish a little lighter than you normally would. Yeah, you want to be ready for that big one when it hits, but I would fish a little bit lighter tackle than you normally would right now. The lake is very high in traffic. There's a tremendous amount of pressure. If you normally fish 25-pound line on in clear water, I would consider using 15 or 17-pound line and just being very prepared and keeping fresh tackle. That'd be my biggest tip. Fish a little bit light.
How can somebody get in touch with you if they want to book a guide trip?
It's pretty easy. My last name's spelled Branum, and it's Brian with an I, Brian, BranumFishing.com. That's the easiest way to remember. But my phone number is 409-698-6075. And if you call anyone around the lake here, you can find out how to get in touch with me. I've been here quite a while.
So we got the Bob Seeley tournament coming up on Rayburn, and it's going to be a good one because Rayburn is at a very good level, what I call, a very fisherman-friendly level. You got the bushes that are just in the water. They have just enough water to produce a big one, and you got a lot of grass, but it's not overwhelming, just the right amount. I think the lake sets up very good this year, and the guys that are fishing the Bob Seeley are definitely going to catch some big ones. But if it was me, if I was going to get to fish that, I'm going to be out of town. I couldn't fish it. Can't fish it anyway, but I'm going to give you 3 baits that I think would definitely produce some big ones this week. One is, and this is more of a slow-moving finesse type technique, but I want to say a Strike King 6-inch Ocho. That bait either on a lightweight Texas rig or on a wacky rig. That is something that you can fish around anything. You can fish around hay grass, you can fish it around cypress, you can fish it in the hydrilla that we have. So that's one thing that I would definitely have tied on. Another is going to be a vibrating jig. My favorite, Strike King Thunder Cricket, 3/4 ounce. That's one of my favorite baits to throw. I usually use something in a green pumpkin or white. I'll mix it up between the two. So in the morning time, those fish are active. They're moving. You can catch them around the grass. Midday, maybe slow roll it in some drains. That bait produces big ones. So that's one I would definitely have tied on. And, I don't look for the tournament to be won on a frog, a hollow body frog, but I'm going to say it's going to produce some big fish this week. So I didn't pick a crankbait. I love to throw crankbaits, but I wouldn't rule it out. But I'm going to say stick shallow, stay with the frog, stay with the slow moving bait like the 6-inch Ocho, and don't forget about that Thunder Cricket. But it should be a great tournament. Y'all have a good time and catch a big one for me.
All right, what sort of depth are we talking when you're talking about shallow? Because it can range from all over the place.
When I'm talking shallow on Rayburn, I'm talking anything from, say, 2 foot all the way out to about 8 to 10 foot. And if I'm going to be fishing in 8 to 10 foot, it's either going to be on a hard clay point or it's going to be around grass. And there is some grass, both hydrilla and milfoil, out in that 8 to 10 foot range. But and it's hard to say whether you're going to catch them in pockets and drains or on points. They'll be related to both. Probably not going to be a lot of fish coming out of far back reaches of a creek, at least the big ones right now.
What about way offshore? What's your thoughts on that?
I think when you're talking about a big fish, anything goes. There's definitely some big ones that live out offshore, and but it's going to be slow fishing. You're going to either be catching a lot of little Kentuckys and little largemouth schooled up offshore this time of year, but there's always a chance that a big one's going to show up. Somebody's going to catch a big one offshore, but I think your chances are better staying 8 to 10 foot or less.
You're kind of known as being one of the brush pile hammers out here. Tell me your thoughts on the brush piles right now.
The brush piles could play because I was out there and there's a lot of crappie in the brush piles. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Again, I'm trying to pick techniques that I think are going to produce a lot of, quality fish, because I'm usually fishing for 5. But when you're just dealing with a big bass, he could definitely be hanging around a brush pile. The bluegill are probably not going to be out there. But, as of 2 weeks ago, tons of crappie, and a lot of them were this big. So that's perfect size for a big bass to eat. Can't roll the brush pile out.
With everything going on at Rayburn right now, what's your pick for a winning weight fish?
Oh my gosh, it's so hard to call it because I think a guy, like I said, the lake should fish good. I think there'll be a lot of people fishing, so that makes it tricky. Definitely going to see several over 10 this year. Could be 11, could be 12, but I take my chances with a 10.5 pounder.
All right. On the low end, what's the minimum size to get paid?
I think it's gonna be like a 5-pound fish. You know, I think every hour just to get a check, I think you're gonna have to bring in a 5-pounder. You know, except the exact weight stuff. But you know, to place good, Rayburn is gonna fish good this week. So you know, I think 4 3/4, 5 pounds for a minimum.
All right. I hadn't asked anybody this question yet. What is a bait or technique you would stay away from this week?
A bait or technique I would stay away from. Probably like the you know, drop shots and finesse techniques out deep. Those type of things. I think you're just going to get caught up in catching small fish. That would be one that I would definitely probably shy away from.
In just a second, I'm going to pan over here because your wife is reeling one in. Woohoo!
That's not going to get paid in the McDonald's. That's just a 2-pounder. So
could you win it in your pond right here?
You'd have a good chance. You'd have a really good chance.
That's why we're not going to give up your address.
No, you're going to have to long cast from the road if you want a shot at that. But they're in there, but they're also in Rayburn, and it should be a great tournament.
All right, lastly, give us some tips or advice that are non-fishing related for this event. You've been around, you've guided a long time on other lakes. You've been out there around a lot of boats and traffic. Tell me some tips for just dealing at the boat ramp or out on the water with other people.
Well, number one, you're definitely going to be dealing with people. They're going to be on your fishing holes. You're going to catch a fish, and somebody's naturally going to come a little closer than they should. But just remember, you're fishing. You're having a good time. So just relax, take a deep breath. You can catch fish with lots of boats around you. No need to get in an argument over that. It's just going to make for a long day for everybody. Number two, make sure you do everything that you're supposed to. You know, have your life jackets, have your lights on when you're supposed to be on. If you're out there before daylight, take it easy. There's a lot of stumps in Rayburn. Just be careful in those two senses. But yeah, number one, it's going to be crowded. It's the Bob Seeley on Rayburn. People come from all over the world. People that don't know the lake, keep that in mind. They don't know the lake. You might, but a lot of people don't. Just relax, have a good time, get ready to fish in a crowd. That's just how it is.